This next story is actually very surprising. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like this before. General Mark Milley, who sounds like a fake person and almost looks like a fake person. Trump is right when he says, General came in right out of Central Casting. He really does look like a general right out of Central Casting. Like, this is a general in a 1990s movie about, like, the end of the world. That's what this guy is. But anyway, so this guy apologized for taking part in Trump's Bible photo op outside the White House. Watch this.
As many of you saw the result of the photograph of me at Lafayette Square last week, that sparked a national debate about the role of the military in civil society. I should not have been there. My presence in that moment and in that environment created a perception of the military involved in domestic politics. As a commissioned uniformed officer, it was a mistake that I have learned from, and I sincerely hope we all can learn from it. We who wear the cloth of our nation come from the people of our nation, and we must hold dear the principle of an apolitical military that is so deeply rooted.
This is fascinating, and this is quite a moment. So listen, there are instances of Trump versus the establishment where, in my opinion, again, sorry for the construction noise in the background, in my opinion, I actually side with Trump over the establishment. Like, for example, on issues of trade. When Trump would threaten these trade deals and say, I'm going to pull out of it, you'd have the establishment melt down and say, oh my God, you're destroying the world order. This is not okay. Do whatever the corporations want, please. So there were instances of Trump bucking establishment orthodoxy where, in my opinion, Trump was correct. Foreign policy. There are many instances where he was like, we're going to get out of Afghanistan. And I was like, yes, do that. We're going to get out of Syria. I'm like, yes, do that. And the establishment was like, no, we can't do that. It would threaten the world order. And the world needs us to invade absolutely every country. Yeah. So I don't want to make this issue out like it's very cut and dry and the establishment and conventional wisdom and the status quo always trumps Trump. No, there are instances where Trump is actually correct in his initial rhetoric on an issue. Now, ultimately, Trump ended up staying in the wars because the establishment overrode him. And really, when it comes to trade policy as well, Trump largely has continued the status quo with, minor deviations here and there. So really, the establishment trumped Trump on virtually every front. On other issues, that was a giant problem, and I didn't agree with it. Here's an issue where the establishment is trumping Trump, and I'm thankful. Because what we're talking about is the Insurrection Act here. We're talking about invoking an old law to stop slave rebellions in order to deploy the U.S. military here at home. That's what Trump wanted to do. Now, watching what General Mark Milley said here, you get the sense that the generals and the military are looking at what Trump wants to do, and they're going, that's a bridge too far, man. I can't do it. I cannot deploy the U.S. military domestically because that's not our job. That's not what we're trained to do. That's not what we're supposed to do. That's the definition of martial law. We're not going to do that. I think that goes too far. I think that's unacceptable. Here you have Mark Milley, who I guess was seen standing around as they were tear-gassing peaceful protesters. And he's like, you know what? American exceptionalism cuts both ways, by the way, where these guys genuinely believe that, like, we're the police force of the world, we're the indispensable country, and so we have to invade all these other places. But also part of American exceptionalism is this notion that, oh my God, we can never turn our military on our own people because we're supposed to be so special and we're supposed to be, a nation that's above and beyond the actions of petty authoritarians. So we don't declare martial law here. We don't deploy our military in our own streets because we're supposed to be the special nation that's above that. We only deploy it elsewhere. So now listen, I'm not a believer in American exceptionalism, but they happen to be correct in the sense that they think we have to draw a line. We cannot deploy our own military in our own country like this. We cannot have that. So they're correct on that for the wrong reasons. It's not that, oh my God, we can't do that because we're so special. It's that, oh my God, we shouldn't do that because the precedent that sets is the death of the First Amendment. When you send in the U.S. military to shut down demonstrations, they will not be able to just target rioters and looters. If the U.S. military is deployed, they will just shut down demonstrations full stop. You know, to steal an old phrase from Obama, it's like using a hatchet when you need to use a scalpel. That's effectively what ordering the U.S. military into U.S. streets, that's what that would be like. And the precedent that sets is there is no free speech at home anymore. Because if you can deploy it now, you can deploy it for any reason or non-reason you want. If the president has the authority to turn the military against the U.S. citizens, then the president will always have that authority. And the details around it could change, but once the president asserts that authority, well, now we open up a whole can of worms, and there is no more First Amendment. So, for example, you wouldn't be able to go out there in the streets and protest the next war or the current wars. We couldn't use our free speech to say, hey, let's stop killing innocent people overseas, because they would shut down that avenue completely. And it looks like a guy like General Mark Milley, he actually understands that, no, this is a bridge too far. This is unconstitutional. This is illegal. This is the actions of a petty authoritarian. It's unacceptable. And he feels bad for even standing there while peaceful protesters were gassed. And so I think you would have, if Trump ever really did order the use of the Insurrection Act, I think you would have an unprecedented situation where you have a lot of conscientious objectors within the top ranks of the U.S. military. Because watching what he's saying here, it's almost like he understands and he gets it that, no. This goes way too far. This is not supposed to be even in the realm of conversation or reasonable debate or discourse. This is just flat, pure, unadulterated authoritarianism. That's what this is. And it brings me nothing but joy to see that apparently our military leaders get it. So, again, I want to reiterate, there are instances of like Trump versus the establishment where I think Trump is right. I think Trump was right on Syria. I think Trump was right on Afghanistan and all the wars, his rhetoric when he said he wants to get out. And I do think that the way the system works, it's almost like, yeah, Trump might even want to get out, but they're just not going to let him. Like, he ordered the withdrawal of troops on Twitter one day, and then the establishment was like, haha, that's a good one. We're not getting out. And I was like, whoa, what? That's the commander-in-chief. What are you talking about? He can order them out if he wants it. But it's almost like the machine said, no, we're not going to let you do that. So there are instances of Trump versus the establishment where I side with Trump. But this is one of those instances where Trump was dead wrong and he wanted to be an authoritarian. And the military, at least the leaders, are acting like, no, we're not, that crosses a line and we're not going to do that. So this is a rare instance where I think the establishment is correct and Trump is wrong. So I'm actually very happy that this general came out and said that. I'm very happy because it shows me that there are certain things that are red lines, and I view Trump invoking the Insurrection Act to shut down demonstrations. I view that as a clear red line that he crossed, which is basically like destroying the First Amendment of the Constitution utterly and completely. And what's reassuring about this is apparently generals agree, or at least one general agrees, and that means there's some semblance of things still do matter. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many bad things happen one after the other that you almost get to the point where you're like, does anything matter? Like, do any of the things that are on paper, our laws, our rules, the way it's supposed to work, does any of that matter? And you get the sense, no, it doesn't. But then every now and then you get a little something that pokes its head out. Like this, where you go, oh, thank God. I'm not the crazy one. Things do still matter. Or like the ruling that just happened where the Supreme Court ruled that transgender people are protected with non-discrimination clauses in the Civil Rights Act. I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God. We finally got another little piece of good news. So this is a rare thing that I'm very happy about. And I hope that he stays true to his word. And I hope that Trump does not exercise that authoritarian streak that he has in him anymore.